Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the PEO's 2024 Council Election All-Candidate Meetings. My name is Marisa Sterling, PEO's Pandemic President in 2020 to 2021, and I will be the moderator for tonight's discussion. If you want, you can turn on closed captions for tonight's discussion by locating the tab along the bottom menu of your Zoom screen and clicking on Captions. Tonight, we will hear from the candidates for President-elect. This will be a term of a total of 3 years, as the candidate elected will serve as president-elect, and then president, and then past president. There is one vacant position to be elected by all qualified PEO members across Ontario. The 4 candidates for this position, in the order drawn just before this meeting, are Wayne Kershaw, Fred Sajewski, Darla Campbell, and Christopher Chahine. The meeting with the candidates via webcast is intended to help you, the voters, learn more about the candidates and PEO's issues to inform your vote. The profession needs every PN to vote to help to form a council that will guide PEO in the coming years. Voters were able to post questions online in advance of this discussion. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. In accordance with the approved protocol for the all-candidate meetings, as moderator, I may shorten the questions and not read out preambles to questions. I may select any question. I may remove offensive and duplicate questions, and I may ask questions not on the platform. Each candidate will be provided 3 minutes for opening remarks. I will then direct a question to a candidate. That candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question. After the candidate has responded, the remaining candidates will have 1 minute to address the first candidate's response to that question. Following the question period, the candidates will have 2 minutes each for closing remarks. Again, the order of speakers was determined by a draw earlier this evening. The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast do not necessarily reflect the views of PEO and are the responsibility of the candidates. No fact-checking of statements by candidates made tonight will be performed. So without further delay, let's get started with the opening remarks. The first candidate for president-elect is Wayne Kershaw. Wayne, please go ahead with your remarks.
Good evening. Thank you all for taking the time to come out and review this candidates meeting. The time has come again that we ask each of you to take a few moments to determine who would best champion the issues affecting the engineering profession. And after a great deal of consideration, I've decided to run for the position of president-elect. Why? I'm proud to be a professional engineer in Ontario, and I've contributed to the governance over the years. There are, however, been some issues with the profession that I'm concerned and really want to address. My primary concern is an almost critically low level of engagement among our members, with only 10 to 12% voting, and that number has been on a downward trend over the last few years. The only 2 reasons I can think of for the other 90% are those who are frustrated with the governments and feel they don't have a voice, and those that simply don't care and are licensed just so they have a job. Both of these scenarios are troubling, as each make PEO's mandate much more difficult to accomplish. To this issue, PEO Council, in my opinion, has been its own worst enemy. In recent years, we have gone through a major restructuring, after which I would have expected that after Council had settled down into functioning with this new structure, they would have reached out to the membership and other stakeholders for feedback on how these changes have affected the PEO's performance. Unfortunately, this never happened. I wish to correct that. Also, as president, I intend to address the engagement issue with a 3-link solution: to inspire, to inquire, and to improve. I intend to approach OSPE to initiate a collaborative effort for a public information campaign to highlight the essential need for properly trained and licensed engineers, and to bring pride back to the profession. I also intend to initiate a series of town hall meetings throughout the province, either live or online, whichever is most practical, to find out from our members their thoughts on matters relating to the PEO or the profession at large. Not just on specific topics, that we as council feel is important, but the topics that the membership is important to them, and what their priorities are and how they think we're performing on those priorities. And then finally, for improve, I actually want to take this information back to council through the president's message and incorporate any lessons learned from these town halls into PEO's next strategic plan. Why me? I come to the table with over 20 years of volunteering experience with the PEO, not only within 2 separate chapters, but also on council and various task forces and committees, as well as running my own business. I have proven myself over the years an accomplished problem solver with original thinking. The PEO has upgraded itself to be a modern regulator. Now, I want to make it an effective one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. The second candidate for president-elect is Fred Sagejski. Fred, please go ahead.
Very much.
Try to make it very quick. My name is, first of all, good evening to everybody. My name is Fred Sagejski. I'm running for the president-elect position. I work as a volunteer in my local chapter for more than 20 years. It's always been a pleasure to serve. I'm all about accountability, devotion, integrity, professionalism, transparency, and honesty. I have also nearly 30 years of professional work experience in the engineering industry, including product design, analysis, development, commercialization, along with an education background in project management and business. I'm also running my own engineering services company for nearly 20 years, working with large corporations. I believe a leader must have a vision to make risky decisions in critical situations. If a leader cannot do this, then what is a leader for? I'm not here to be a neutral participant. I'm here to make sure we're all moving the right direction. PEO is neither a for-profit company nor a government agency. PEO is something more. It's powered by its own members. So it must work for its members as well as the public. I'm here to make sure it happens. We all need to be united in order to use all our power and resources for helping our community under a wise leadership. I'm well aware that would be challenges and opposition on my way. That's why I need your all support I can get. We are all part of a large family, regardless of our ethnicity, mother language, background, race, etc. We are all here to take our hands and to help each other out to achieve our goals. I'm running to modernize PEO, to monitor financial accountability and advocate to keep costs low, to reduce tasks related to continuing professional development, or what CPT is known, within my power. And last but not least, to create a bridge between the industry and members. I wish luck for my fellow candidates. I hope if you are elected, follow the same goals I'm following. This night is not just for me or other candidates. This night belongs to all members anywhere they are. If they give me a chance to help, I will do it with all my heart and power. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much, Fred. And now the third candidate for president-elect is Darla Campbell. Darla, please, your opening remarks.
Good evening. It's a privilege to speak to you today at the PEO All Candidates meeting. Let me start with an Indigenous land acknowledgement. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we are in solidarity with Indigenous brothers and sisters to honor and respect the 4 directions: lands, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors that walk before us, and all of the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for being stewards of this traditional territory, Miigwech. During the campaign in 2017, I set a goal to visit at least half the chapters during the campaign. That goal was achieved. I cherish the stories that I heard from you about your passion for engineering, the many firsts that you've achieved, and your commitment to mentor others. You inspire me. 20 years ago, I was invited by the Canadian Consulate to be a keynote speaker in Nagoya, Japan. Speaking through a translator, I shared the experience of how Canadian businesswomen were making significant strides and how that was connected to the recommendations by the Royal Commission on the Status of Women. So you see, I've been working for equity for a long time, and I am a passionate supporter of Engineers Canada 30 by 30 campaign and the need for PEO to value inclusivity and diversity for women and for all. Today, I work at Dillon Consulting as the lead for asset management. I worked for an international water company and the Ontario Clean Water Agency. I bring my experience in serving on PEO Council and on other boards. This campaign is about collaboration, consultation, and leadership. Why vote for me? Well, with your vote, I will bring my experience to focus on elevating the profession in Ontario and take action to keep engineering respected and trusted. What direction is PEO moving in? Is it the right direction to protect the public interest? This is the time PEO needs a leader who will champion robust consultation that gathers your ideas, suggestions, and opportunities to make PEO a relevant regulator. This is how we achieve Vision 2050. Working together, we will provide clear direction for PEO by developing a solid strategic plan that puts PEO on a path to relevancy, incorporating the input from the consultation. PEO needs a leader who will get results within the 3-year term of office and sets PEO up for success going forward. I am that leader. I chose engineering because it offered the opportunity to become part of a profession. After over 30 years of licensure in PEO, I continue to wear the PEng designation with pride. I'm running in this election to elevate the engineering profession in Ontario for you, for me, for future generations, and for the protection of the public and the environment. I look forward to the questions and our further conversations as we build the future together.
Thank you very much, Darla. Now, the fourth candidate for President-elect is Christopher Shaheen. Christopher, please go ahead with your opening remarks.
Thank you, Past President Marissa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Shaheen, and I'm running for President-elect. I have had the distinct privilege of being the current PEO Vice President and past Regional Councillor. I have proven incapable leadership on PEO Council throughout the past 3 years. I was also the media spokesperson for PEO and acting chair of the PEO Council on several occasions. Further to that, I've helped put together several motions on Council that were passed successfully. I'm a doer, I'm an actor, and I'm a listener. I have 14 years of professional work experience in the power utility industry, along with an educational background in project management, risk management, business performance leadership, and of course, I hold a Six Sigma Black Belt professional designation where I have a passion for efficiency and leadership. I'm also in the final stages of completing a master's in public safety. All of these experiences which have helped to serve PEO Council in the past and have the potential to help in the future. So some of my presidential goals, if elected, are to focus on inducting the emerging engineering disciplines proactively, reviving and enhancing the EIT program and building it back better, improving PEO regulation and value of PEng license, and ensuring a modern and relevant PEO. But of course, I would also focus on council and election reform. I'd like to wish my fellow election running candidates good luck. As for the PEO members, this night is for you. So please, I encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity, ask the questions, or email us at any time. Get out there and vote. And if you want to make your vote count, again, my name is Christopher Shaheen, and I look forward to sharing a little more about myself tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christopher. This now concludes the opening remarks segment, and now we'll go to the questions. So the first question will start with Wayne. And the question is, what do you see as the role of President-elect, which then becomes President and past President of Council? So those three years, those three different positions, what do you see as that role for yourself if elected? I think I'm not hearing you, Wayne.
You're good now?
Great, that's great. If we could just, please go ahead. Yeah, you have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Okay. I want to be able to take the president-elect and basically do the plan that I outlined in my opening statement. To inquire, to inspire, and to improve. As president-elect, in the first year is when I would want to do the town hall meetings with membership and find out from the membership what is important to them. Throughout the years, PEO Council has made some assumptions as to what's important and what the members want and don't want. And we've never actually gone so far as to ask that question. And to me, that's a big reason why the members are not engaged. Moving forward then to the actual president is when we would be working with OSPI and working on the strategic plan to try to build up the profession, make the profession important as it is to us, and to develop a PEO strategic plan that will guide us forward into the future and be an effective regulator.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Fred, what is your response to that? Please go ahead.
Would you please repeat the question?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So the position that you're running for, president-elect, then becomes president and past president over a 3-year period. And what do you see as that role on council for yourself?
Well, first of all, I would say that I will do anything in my power to prevent wrongdoings. There are a lot of things happening. The president doesn't have a power to stop them or change them. So the first thing I'm gonna fight for is a powerful President Act. When the president has the power, he can change. He can make changes. Right now, president has no power. So how we gonna expect him to do anything? Except he has only one vote in the council, you know. So I suggest working with others, try to find together a solution for it. You know, to have a president who can make changes, who can improve things, not just sitting in the corner and vote like others.
Thank you very much, Fred.
Mhm.
Darla, what about yourself? What's your response to this question?
Mhm. This is an excellent question. So a 3-year term is a long term, but it's not that long. So getting started immediately will be important. So part of my campaign, as I mentioned in my opening statement, is about the consultation with the members and with stakeholders. So that robust consultation is what's happening in the first year as president-elect. At the same time, collaboration with counselors and getting to know counselors and colleagues around the table. I will commit a significant amount of my time in those one-on-one conversations to be able to understand the folks who are in the room and at the table along with me as we move into the year of being president. Building on the consultation, we'll get the strategic plan in place, and then the role of past president is to help the new leadership to move forward and to see the continuation of those initiatives. It'll be a very quick 3 years, and I'm very excited about getting started very soon.
Thank you very much, Darla. Christopher, what would be your response?
Also an excellent question. I believe it's the president's role to ensure council is functional and that the PEO upholds the PEO Act and its core mandates. And during my time as vice president, regional councilor, I observed the president's actions firsthand. I got that front row seat, so I was able to see several presidents in action. And they essentially chair the council meetings, the executive council meeting, and they're on multiple governance and board committees. And I've been a member of nearly all those committees and working together with them hand by hand, and also attend any meetings that they would need me to cover for. So essentially, I see the role as president of one that needs to be involved, aligned with internal and external intricacies of PEO council and the membership. And we kind of heard this word going around throughout the answers, and that's the word consultation. And I believe regular consultation, frequent consultation is important. Getting that information, being transparent about it, and keeping processes modern with that information, keeping the PEO relevant and valuable to current and future license holders. And of course, that's going to require a lot of diligence. So thank you. That's my time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christopher. Okay, so this next question, we'll start with Fred. So PEO has a series of core values. And if you reflect on them, which of them is most important to you, and why would that be? So Fred, please go ahead.
Well, first of all is the public safety, which is very important. We try to save it. And all our rules, regulations, the act we have, is based on that. Well, public is not just the people on the street. Public is also professional engineers. So I would say if there is a combination of interest between what we do and what we have to do, we can have a better outcome. And the other thing I would say is the rules and regulations to facilitate the licensing and the rules, the regulatory decisions. This is good, and we all want to make sure it happens. It happens rightfully. It happens in the right direction.
Thank you
These
very
are what
much.
I think. Yes.
Thank you so much. Yes. Darla, what about yourself? Which of PEO's core values do you think is most important to you, and why is that?
It feels like this is a trick question because core values of the 5 core values, they're all really essential. So accountability, respect, integrity, professionalism, and teamwork. And really, this is how the organization, Special Engineers Association, moves forward and operates. I would say that from the board perspective, if you think about the PEO Operating Council as a board, it's the teamwork that's essential and working together. It's also about the professionalism and accountability. Certainly, it's important that we operate with respect of each other, and we operate with integrity. And I really can't separate those 5 core values.
Okay, thank you very much. Christopher, what about yourself? What's your thoughts?
I would definitely agree with Darla on this one. There are 5 core values with PEO, and they're all really interdependent to actually be productive or to move forward as a professional organization. So you can't really have integrity without respect or accountability. You can't really have teamwork without professionalism or integrity. And it's a really key thing that even as a president, you have to immerse in teamwork. You have to keep professionalism at high regard, and you have to make sure people do what they say to get things done. And that involves working with staff, working with council, working with key stakeholders. And of course, again, I would have all of them as number 1. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christopher. Wayne, what about yourself?
I also tend to agree with Darla in the fact that these being core values, they are core to our existence and really can't be separated out. However, having said that, I think the one that strikes deepest to me, being asked to make a choice, would actually be teamwork. That is teamwork with the other 4 in place, of course. So you would have teamwork with accountability, mutual respect, integrity, and professionalism. But in doing the teamwork as president, it is important that all voices are heard. It is important to make sure that everyone on council is included and that all our stakeholders' voices are heard when we're making key decisions, especially when it comes to developing our strategic plan. We need to take that information, we need to put it together, and we need to learn from our members and from our other stakeholders as a team, how best can we serve and how best can we regulate the profession.
Thank you very much, Wayne. So this next question is a bit of a follow-up, and we'll start with Darla for the first response. So council is made up of 25 individuals. They bring a variety of perspectives as engineers and members of the public. So how would colleagues describe your leadership style? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, leadership is essential in a leadership role when you're running for president-elect. So my leadership style would be described as collaborative. And I would hope that my colleagues would also highlight the fact that there's a fun nature to the work that I do. And funny, and thanks for the sound effects in the background, whoever shared the dog barking. I think it's important that we focus on delivering the results that we're looking for, and that we do that in a way where the outcome is clear, and that the process is respected along the way. That's an important part of the collaborative leadership style that I bring, and the results in remembering to celebrate along the way, because the work that we're going to do is hard. And it's important that we work together, we take the steps, we identify those milestones, and that we celebrate those successes along the way. So collaboration and celebration.
Thank you very much, Darla. Christopher, what about yourself? How would colleagues describe your leadership style?
Yeah, so I've been called inclusive. I've been called collaborative type of leader. I believe if I win, we all win. If we win, we all win. And I always strive for a win-win situation. Very experienced to know that you can't make everyone happy. We are human, and half happy is sometimes the way to go. But I would say that the best example of leadership for me is to lead by example and to show that I'm willing to do it as well, and that I can show something that's innovative and different and bring in light the problem and the solution. However, I also know that you got to work in teams. And to do that, you have to have respect, trust, and transparency to get that done. So similarly, I would also like to give acknowledgement to those who are part of all these different beautiful ways to get solutions done. So it's also important to recognize. And as a leader, I think that's on them to do. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Christopher. Wayne, what about yourself? How would people describe your leadership style?
My leadership style, quite honestly, tends to change slightly to the situation. With an organization like the PEO, I feel my leadership style is most best described as collaborative. However, collaborative with a clear vision to the goal at hand. It's one thing to be able to work with your team and get everyone's input and try to do that. But if everyone's constantly having different ideas and stuff like that, and you don't have a strong leader to keep the end goal in mind, no collaboration in the world will ever be successful. So yeah, I would put myself down as a collaborative leader, and I put myself down as a strong collaborative leader.
Great. Thank you very much, Wayne. And Fred, what about yourself? How would people describe your leadership style?
Well, I would say it's a general question. It needs a general answer. The leadership is all about power, vision, and determination. If you have a vision showing people what we need to achieve, and they agree on it, then we have to force it. We have to work together, have the power to pursue it, and to get to that goal. And if you don't have that power, nothing's going to happen. If people don't cooperate, nothing's going to happen. So the role of the leader is to bring everybody on the table, to explain to them what is important, and make them united, and we all work for that. That's how I feel about leadership. Not just sitting there having another voice. That's not leadership. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fred. So let's now get into some of the things that were talked about in your opening statements. And Christopher, you'll be the first one to take this question. So what do you see as the most important challenge facing PEO today? And if successful in your election, what would you be doing to address that in your first year? And
So-
sorry,
Yep, sorry.
right,
So
you were on mute. So please, nope, start again, please. That's okay.
okay. So the first year coming in is actually a president-elect. You're not the president yet. You're the incoming president, and of course, that's the first year. So what I see is relevance as a regulator is very important. Our value is extremely important, and of course, the emerging disciplines. Those kind of things are highly important. It's the people out there calling themselves engineers or practicing engineers that should be really licensed is what we should be focusing on. But the emerging disciplines is what we need to draw our attention to. And, if you ask yourself in the first year, if I were to be elected, we need to look at the data. We need to look at how many different things are out there. And of course, use that to our advantage. That's my answer. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christopher. Wayne, what about yourself?
This one's actually a rather difficult one to answer, only because I believe there's actually more than one major issue that PEO has to deal with. Unfortunately, I would have to say, however, that the most challenging one, the one that has to be dealt with first, is the member apathy. We're dealing with about 90,000 members. Only 10 to 12% of them are voting, and that number has been in decline. And if you look at the list of candidates, Two of the largest regions running for regional councillor are running unchallenged. So we're saying out of almost 40,000 engineers, we only found two that were willing to step up and do the work. We cannot address the other issues, emerging disciplines, of environment, anything else that we want to talk about until we deal with these issues and get our members on board and helping us solve these problems.
Thanks very much, Wayne. Fred, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would say, well, if I start working as a president, first thing is I find out what my limits are. A president doesn't have unlimited power. Then I will try to use that limit, whatever power I have, to make positive changes and to see what's going on, see who's doing what. And then I'm going to fight for a more power, the strong president, to be able to make changes that is my goal I'm looking for. You know what I'm saying? So we see, everybody sees there are things happening that is out of everybody's hand, and nobody can make a firm and final decision on them. A president has to have a power to do this, and we don't have that much. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Darla, what's your response to what you've heard so far?
I'd say there's lots of good initiatives out there, so I'll thank my colleagues for bringing those ones forward. The one I want to address as the biggest and most important challenge is the EIT designation. I think that one is essential, that we get that sorted out, that we become more standard with the other provinces in the country. And that we sort of fix that problem soon, get back on track with the EIT designation and have clarification there. I think there's so much confusion out there with the lack of that designation existing currently or into the future, that we need to correct that, because there's a lot of confusion. And our job is to protect the public interest and to provide clarity on the responsibility of professional engineers. And I believe that is an initiative that needs to be dealt with swiftly and correctly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Darla. So let's pick up on some of the things that each of you has said, and we'll start first with Wayne. So you've talked a little bit about relevance and value. So what do you see as ways to build relevance and value of PEO to members and license holders?
Off, we have to make use of OSPI. They have a very similar problem with the lack of interest with their members. It affects both of us equally, and it's something that they can well done and are well situated to help us with. We have to get this under control. We have to get our members taking pride in their profession again. Each of us sitting here and all 90,000 members went through a great deal of effort to become a professional engineer. Wasn't an easy job for anybody, and yet we're just letting it slide. And we have to bring that pride back. And by starting with a public information campaign, getting the general public on our side also, then talking with our own members, letting them know that they are important to the PEO, they are important to council. Their ideas do matter. We are professional problem solvers, and we should be using that.
Okay, thank you very much, Wayne. Fred, what are your thoughts?
Would you please repeat the question?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, how would you build the relevance and value of PEO to its members and to license holders?
Well, the most important key point here is communication. We don't have that, and we're not looking for it. Nobody does. So, you know, when I was reading the pamphlet regarding the position, it says council doesn't represent members. How is it possible? Members like council, but they're not represented by them. So first thing is communication. We have to create a connection between people, whether they are councillors, members, they are staff, everybody. We have to work together. It's otherwise nothing is going to happen. Nothing good comes out of it. That's the first thing that we have to make sure happening. Then we can talk about changing rules and regulations and collaboration whatsoever.
Thank you, Fred. Now, Darla, how would you like to respond around how to build relevance and value of PEO to members and license holders?
Mhm. I'd say similar to Wayne's comments when he opened with the public information campaign and working closely with OSPI. I think that those are good initiatives. I'm going to build on that by saying that the brand of the PEng is an initiative that can be focused on and understanding and communicating. So building on Fred's comments around the importance of communication. So communicating the importance and the relevance of PEng. So that we, can continue to wear that with pride. I think that we have an opportunity here that is in fact connected to the EIT designation, bringing it back and connecting and the story so that EITs become part of the journey to become licensed, and that as they become licensed, that there's a pride associated with holding the PEng designation.
Thank you, Darla. And Christopher, what would be your response?
For sure. The relevance piece is by definition work being done by an engineer or someone who should be a licensed engineer. I'll give you an example. Like, how many cyber attacks did we see last year in Ontario? And I know in October, we got hit hard with ransomware. About 5.6 million Ontarios lost their personal information to the hospitals. Where's the ethics? They definitely got the technical down, but not just that, we're seeing huge changes in our automotive sector as well, and through electrification and AI and sensors. So that's the relevance piece. Do you need a license? Should you be practicing with a license? You got the design, the technical piece down, but that ethics piece is really missing out there. And I think we need to be relevant in that area. As for the value, I do know that there's a lot of opportunity for the government liaison program to be involved, OSPI to be involved, and so on and so forth. So I do look forward to building those relationships and adding more value if elected.
Okay, thanks very much, Christopher. So this next question will go to Fred. So there's been some discussion around compensation for council members. And so if elected, what would be your stance around financial compensation for PEO council members?
Well, good question. So the compensation, if you're talking about monetary compensation, it must be there. You can't attract people who have the skills and the people who have knowledge, or in another way, how would I say that? Competent people without paying them. If you don't pay them, what you're going to get? You're going to get retired people. You're going to get opportunities, and so on. I'm not saying everybody's like that. It's not. But there are many people who devote their time, their effort, and they are competent. They come and work and do the job. But we want to create a structure that just attracts the right people for the right job. You know what I'm saying? So compensation is important, if that's the question.
Thank you, Fred.
Yes.
Darla, what would be your response?
So I'm going to take opposition to Fred's position on this one. I feel that the role of the counselors is in a voluntary capacity. Certainly expenses should be covered and continue to be covered, but to remunerate a director or counselor for their service will, I think, change the dynamic of who is actually choosing to participate on the board. And I would also like to see what the comparisons are for other regulators, as well as that decision should it come to council.
Thank you. Christopher, what's your response to what you've heard?
I think compensation for council is an interesting question. I think we need to see some more data or some more evidence on this, but I do have some opinions. We need to be very cognizant about self-interest versus public interest. If you have someone running just for the money, I think you might lose what you're really running for, what you're representing. Do I believe in perhaps being remunerated for the time you're on that day for council? Absolutely. I think that would definitely help younger folks come out. I think that would help diversity groups come out to actually apply to these positions that we're struggling to fill. They would also bring a different perspective. How many younger folks do you see running for council? Are they able to because of financial reasons? That kind of data would be interesting for me to see to answer a better way. Thank you.
May I ask
Thank you very
something,
much.
please?
Yeah, we're going to go to Wayne now. So Wayne, please go ahead and share what your response is.
I believe Christopher is correct in one aspect. In fact, we need to understand the reasons why we don't have the people running for council that we should have. With any engineering problem, before we present a solution, we have to understand the problem. We have to understand the core issues before we can propose a solution. Otherwise, we're just putting a Band-Aid on it. To compensate council, I think, would actually be a very bad idea on the face of it without more information, partially because, in my opinion, it puts us in a situation of conflict of interest. We are now providing oversight over a company or over an organization that we are getting paid by. Where is loyalty there? I know our loyalty is to profession, our loyalty is to govern the act, but then we're also being paid for this by the people we're supposed to be watching over. And I don't necessarily think that's the best way to properly govern this profession.
Thanks very much, Wayne.
May I ask something?
So yeah, Fred, so what we'll do is we'll go to the next question. And when you have your time, you're welcome to use it as you'd like. Okay, great. So the next question will go to Darla. So you've already talked a little bit about this in some of your remarks. So there are audience members that have voiced some concern around the loss of the EIT status in Ontario in the last 6 months or so. EIT, also known as Engineering Intern or Engineer in Training Program. And so what do you think about this decision? How concerned are you about future engineering graduates, their engagement in PEO, gaining engineering experience, and applying for a PEng license?
Yeah, I think this is the top priority, certainly as part of my platform, and I think a top concern for PEO moving forward. PEO needs to embrace the EIT designation as a first and foremost, because it creates a sense of fairness in the usage and the connection of engineering graduates. So the challenge right now is that engineering graduates can't call themselves an EIT. And so what do they call themselves? An analyst? And then they're going to get pushed into other areas and not actually stick to engineering. So there is this concern that we're not welcoming engineers, young engineers and young engineering students into the profession by closing down this designation. I think we need to fix that, and we need to do that swiftly.
Thank you, Darla. Christopher, what would be your response?
Thank you, Marissa. The program actually wasn't canceled. It was deferred or suspended. And this was actually due to FARPACTA back in June 2023. This is something currently being worked on at Council. And I believe it was an unintended consequence from FARPACTA. And I would be a huge spokesperson and advocate for the EITs. Something we say in parts of the climate change world is build back better. So not only would I support the EITs in coming back, I would want them back yesterday. I would want them to have an EIT representative on council. I think future engineers currently have no voice. Future engineers have no voice, and I think they should have a seat on council and not just have the EIT designation. And another example is Quebec, the PEO of Quebec. They have a candidate to the engineering profession, a CEP, full designation that could possibly be our solution. Something I would definitely like to bring as part of discussion in the future. So I'd support this.
Yeah, thanks very much, Christopher. Wayne, what would be your response?
Okay. To be honest, I find PEO's response to FARPACTA was, for lack of a better word, rather shameful. It was done completely off the cuff without the due diligence of consultation. In fact, being a member of the licensing committee, I can actually speak that licensing committee wasn't even consulted when we dropped EIT. Before FARPACTA, PEO's position was try to get new engineer graduates in the system as early as possible, so as to encourage them and help them through the system while they're still enthusiastic. Our approach to FARPACTA has reversed that policy. requiring new applicants to complete 4 years before applying. This does nothing to improve access to the profession, which was the overall intent for PACTA. It does give applicants time to find loopholes to avoid seeking licensure altogether, effectively creating an underground engineering industry, which PO will have a very difficult time overseeing. I want to address that as president.
Thank you very much, Wayne. And Fred, please, you have a minute if you'd like to respond or say something else. Please go ahead.
Please repeat the question.
Oh, absolutely. A summary of the question is that at least for the last 6 months, the EIT status does not exist in Ontario. And what do you think about this decision? And do you have any concerns?
Well, I believe EIT is part of the engineering community, engineering family. We can't just leave them alone. We all have been EIT in one point in our life. They need support and protection, not get involved in the governance, but support and protection, probably help any way possible. All right. We can't just leave them alone. No, Power Factor is good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's try to facilitate, but still there are problems with it. There are weaknesses in it that, we can't just ignore the vast majority of people who want to join this community, and they don't have the info, they don't have the support they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred. So another question that's been brought up by some individuals, and this is going to first go to Christopher, is actually about PEO chapters. So PEO has 36 chapters that function and host activities that are legally permitted for a regulator, but may not be essential to effective board governance or to regulating. And so what is your view on the chapters? How should the chapters, council deal with chapters in the coming year? Should they remain with PEO? Should PEO maybe ask OSFI to help with the management? Should PEO be doing something else? What do you think?
I think it's a great question. I'm very passionate about the chapters. In 2022, I was the chair of the Regional Council Committee, and I also hosted several license ceremonies and was quite an honor to be part of. There's actually a meeting coming up on the 19th for PEO Council to discuss how OSFI could be a good fit to help with the chapters. And I'll be there. And as for my thoughts right now, we need to really ask the chapters what they want to do. And OSFI needs to kind of really demonstrate compelling information for a transfer to happen if there were to be one. So I'm very passionate about the chapters, and I believe that you should have a referendum with them. And if it were up to me as a president, I would ask them to have their own internal voting and then have 36 votes lined up to make a decision. But overall, they should have a mission statement, a vision statement, and ultimately they should really be accounted for with respect. Thanks.
Thank you, Christopher. Wayne, what would be your response?
Our approach and the idea that chapters serve neither a governance nor regulatory role was produced back with the Camden report. And not to put too blunt a point on it, I thought that was absolute nonsense. Chapters as they were currently run didn't provide a regulatory role. They did provide a governance role. Most people on council came up from the chapter system. The regulatory role comes with public engagement. It comes in getting the members enthused about the profession again. You have members who are licensed just because they need to have a license, or you have government that don't care. They're not going to do the mandatory reporting of people who are operating without a license or people who are operating unethically, mainly because it's too much of a hassle for them. The chapters can help us with our regulatory requirements by getting our members engaged and proud to be engineers again.
Thank you, Wayne. Fred, what about yourself? What's your response?
Yeah, I would say I've been working with my local chapters for more than 20 years. This is our roots, where we come from. And if we don't have that, we're talking about, when we talk about chapters, we're talking about thousands of volunteers, passionate people who have come to help the profession. Well, how are we going to use this force? There is absolutely no way. We just give them some instructions, what to do, not to do, never listen to them, never talk to them. How's it going to work? I believe chapters has to be part of the decision-making process. These are people we're talking like they're acting like ambassadors in the communities. You know, when people talk about professional engineers, they're pointing at people who they know in the chapters. So we have to work with them as close as possible. We have to let them come and get involved in the decision making. We have to communicate with them. Even counselors have to go to them and try to get feedbacks from them. This is the way it works. We don't
Thank
have.
you very much, Fred. Thank you. Yes. And Darla, what would be your response to what you've heard so far in the question?
I would say that I'm primarily in support of the ideas that have been brought forward by my fellow candidates here. I like the ambassadors in the community that Fred talked about. I liked Christopher's comments as well around ask the chapters what they want to do and to, you know, through a collaborative process, figure out what the next step is. I think there's value that is understood at kind of the intrinsic level. Chapters are the roots of CEO. This is where conversations happen. This is where a community of practice exists, and where we support each other. Engineering happens in the boardroom. It happens at our desks. It happens at our computers, and it happens within our communities. I think it's a great opportunity for chapters to continue to be ambassadors in the community through their role in serving on chapters. Thank
you very much. Okay, so this next question we'll start with Wayne on this one. So when we think about PEO and the council, which operates under a self-regulation model, what do you think is the biggest threat to self-regulation as it pertains to PEO and the engineering profession?
To be honest, I'm beginning to feel like I'm harping on this a fair bit, but I think honestly, the lack of interest in our membership is our biggest threat. Our membership is where we get our counselors. It's where we get the people who are running for president. Our membership is also the ones who do the reporting for non-ethical behavior and stuff like that. If we can't get our members on board, our job in maintaining the act and governing the act becomes significantly harder. And we really need to solve this apathy problem. We need to take a direct approach to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Wayne. Fred, what are your thoughts?
Well, the biggest threat, in my opinion, is to lose our position as a self-governance body. It's important. Now, how am going to lose it? If we don't have competent counselors or people who really know what to do, and government feels that the job is not done properly, you know what I'm saying? They may take away the privilege of the rights we have. So the best thing is, first, we make sure the right people get into the council, into the position. The right people are hired as a staff, and then we have to monitor them. It's important. If we don't do this, we don't do the right job, we're kicked out. Easy, you know? So this is the biggest threat. I mentioned earlier that if we pay people, I'll give you an example. If you pay a judge to come and judge, is it conflict of interest? A government pays a judge to come, and sometimes the defendant is against the government, but it's not a conflict of interest. We have to consider that, you know.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fred. Darla, what would be your response?
I think the biggest threat to self-regulation as it pertains to PEO and the engineering profession is apathy. And so I'm agreeing with Wayne on his opening comment. So I'm going to take my time to talk about the flip side of apathy, which is interference. So there is a real threat that we could lose our ability to self-regulate if we can't demonstrate good governance and fulfilling our role in protecting the public interest. And so there is a need for us to continue to stay the course, to focus on the right touch regulation. That's a step in the right direction. We also need to mitigate interference in the role of the regulator, as interference could be seen as self-serving, which is contrary to protecting the public interest. And so another way that we could talk about the self-serving is the old boys club. So if we move into that mode, that we can in fact be at risk of losing our ability to self-regulate.
Thank you, Darla. And Christopher, what would be your response?
So self-regulation means for the members, by the members, and we need to demonstrate good governance and fairness. And once that's not there, there's threats all over the place. So a few threats that I would want to share would probably be like a disengaged membership or a dysfunctional council. These are big threats to PEO and to the profession. But outside looking in, I would say one threat would be how one individual's actions is perceived as all the members' actions. And we really saw that in the Scott Johnson inquest. Another threat to self-regulation would be like outdated self-regulation practice or something that's not been reviewed or updated in quite a long time, which could be bringing us to a path that's not relevant. Those are really fundamental things. And lastly, I'd probably close with saying, when external forces make decisions for us, you're no longer self-regulation by definition. So those are all threats I would really answer with.
Okay. Thanks very much, Christopher. So this next question will go to Fred first. And we want to talk a little bit about Engineers Canada and PEO and that relationship. So currently Engineers Canada is the one that accredits the academic experience of applicants that study in Ontario higher education and across Canada. And they also work to sort of work on national collaboration in regulation. And so what do you think is the ideal relationship between PEO and Engineers Canada going forward?
Well, they have to communicate. They have to work closely with each other. They're not separated. It's just geographic differences, maybe, or maybe they have other concerns in nationwide. But the best thing is that PEO collaborate with them, and they collaborate with PEO, and they both collaborate with the government and the members to do the right job. They can for the start they can share information, and they can share the tasks and duties. So did it happen? We don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody informs us of any of these. Thank you.
Okay. And Darla, please, your response.
Mm-hmm. So we have, I believe, 5 directors from PEO who sit on Engineers Canada. And I think it's important that the directors on Engineers Canada have an opportunity to represent Ontario through council, but also to have an independent voice at Engineers Canada. The opportunity to participate in an accreditation process, I've had a chance to do that as a volunteer on a couple of occasions. It is a very robust process. It's a very important activity that the Engineering Accreditation Board takes on, and we should be doing what we can to support that initiative. As well as continue to look at national standardization opportunities where Ontario can, in fact, be more consistent with the other provinces. I think that's an opportunity for Engineers Canada.
Thank you, Darla. Christopher, what's your response?
Thank you. I would say the ideal relationship between PEO and Engineers Canada is to ensure we're informed, aligned, updated, and consistent with that world-class practice on the engineering profession. And as mentioned, we have 5 directors from Ontario that do an awesome job helping us and represent us there. I would say ensuring that licensing and governing standards are reasonable and in line with other provinces and territories, along with our licensing requirements and how that's been changing and evolving from one province to another. One big thing I would say is to have a good relationship with Engineers Canada, in particular, when it comes to climate change and the 30 by 30 initiative. And if you go on PEO's website and type either one of those in, it will take you to an Engineers Canada website with more information. And I think that should be maintained, promoted, and a bit more detail on the provincial level from Engineers Canada. Thank you.
Okay. Wayne, what's your response?
The ideal relationship with Engineers Canada is one that we're actually working together. PEO fundamentally is a regulator. In fact, our council back when it started its restructuring, actually came up with a statement that the PIO is primarily a regulator. Engineers Canada, and we have the opportunity to work with Engineers Canada to do such thing as promote a standard of practice that is uniform across Canada. So that what is acceptable practice standards in Ontario is acceptable practice standards in Quebec, is the same for BC. We do that to some degree, but to actually have a complete set so that a license is a license across Canada is best for our membership and for the public at large. To have standards of practice which are consistent across Canada means that no matter where a product or service comes from, you can know that it meets that high level standard.
Okay. Great. So we'll now move to the next question, and we're going to start with Darla on this one. So how would you describe the optimal relationship between operational and governance roles in a modern regulatory body? So how do you draw the line between governance and operations?
So operational and governance. Okay, so the most effective governance is a direct and control approach, and this is how PEO is set up for success, where PEO as council provides direction to the organization and looks for controls within which often is a way to report information back and to understand how performance is being delivered. The way that council is set up under good governance is that there is one employee who reports to council, and that one employee is the PEO registrar, and that's the point of contact with all staff as the organization functions efficiently under a direction and control model.
Okay. And Christopher, what would be your response?
Yeah, so operational tasks are conducted by professional staff and led by the CEO and Registrar Jennifer Paglietta of the PEO. And the governance roles are conducted by council. And I've had the unique experience to be on council while we actually had a CEO retire and a new one get hired, and observe a modern and a really successful transformation with staff, leadership, and of course, culture. So having that front row seat, I've seen PEO staff and their talent. I've seen the effectiveness of good counsel, and to have an optimum relationship between the two different streams and through that role succession is important. I've seen that you have to learn the roles properly. You have to modernize them and identify the gaps. And if I was elected as president, I would ensure that there's a strong and open communication between the CEO and council, and communicating plans and ideas there and back. That would be my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Wayne, what's your response to what you've heard so far?
PEO Council as the governing body of PEO, and it's been mentioned by Chris and Darla too, has one employee, and that would be the CEO. In this case, also the registrar. Our role as council is to provide high-level strategic planning and oversight to what the PEO does. High-level strategic planning, I think, speaks for itself in any governance model. Is your board of directors has to come up with the direction for the entire group. That's why we're called directors. The oversight, I think, sometimes is missed. And that's something that we have to be careful about. Is in our current model, we run the risk of becoming a rubber stamp machine, where we're taking the advice of those in operations and saying, oh, it sounds good. You guys know what you're doing. Obviously, just go ahead and do it. And we always have to remember that part of our role is actually still oversight. And again, that's through the CEO.
Okay. Fred, what are your thoughts on what you've heard so far?
Well, I would say we have to look at it like what's going to happen over time. The optimal relationship as we know it, where you have council comes into power for a couple of years, then they all leave, and whatever they did, the connection is broken. So there is a communication gap here. It shouldn't, but it is. Now the next council comes, new ideas. There is this continued disconnection here. The best thing is we have to have a mediator or someone or a group that create to keep track of what was done in the past and let the operational body, monitor it to make sure operational body is on it, not just forget about everything and start from the scratch.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Listen, our next question is going to go to Christopher to start. And I think this has already been mentioned already tonight. So it's about the 30 by 30. So nationally, among Canadian engineering regulators, is a goal by 2030 to have 30% of new licensees be identified as women. And PEO signed on to this goal a few years ago. And how would you direct PEO's role in this goal for the remaining 6 years of it?
Right. The 30 by 30 is a wonderful initiative. It was actually first conceived by APEGA, the geoscientists of Alberta in 2010, and it was adopted by Engineers Canada. And, when I first heard of it, I was quite early in my career, and I'm like, why 30%? And it's actually universally held as a tipping point for sustainable change. But change what? And it's actually better serve and protect the public interest by bringing in diverse perspectives. And women, diversity, that's the key. And research has actually shown that balanced diversity can improve performance, decision-making, public safety, and all the core values that we have at PEO. I would wholeheartedly support this and bring it forward. And the emerging disciplines could be one of the answers. We're finding more and more females going into that direction. So maybe we can kill two birds with one stone. Those are the opportunities I like to look at.
Thank you. Wayne, what are your thoughts?
Well, I run the risk of not being excessively popular on this one. But to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of 30 by 30 the way it's laid out. Not that I disagree with the concept. I think the concept is fantastic. My issue with it is the fact it really doesn't go far enough. PEO is claimed to be a modern regulator, yet we're still using a binary thinking when it comes to diversity. Men versus women. Nowhere in 30 to 30 does it address the LGBTQ community. Nowhere does it address trans individuals. We don't even want to know if we have an LGBTQ member or not. So we're not even tracking that. So as much as I would say that yes, I would support the 30 by 30, I would strongly encourage that it expand its mandate and that it try to deal with other marginalized societies.
Okay. Fred, what are your thoughts on what you heard so far?
Women in the profession, I suggest we have to encourage them, we have to promote, we have to talk to them, support them, everything we can in our power, but not necessarily spending budget on it. Any budget spent based on race, gender, ethnicity, or so on, I disagree with it. Well, it would be unfair to other people. But I'm pro. I like that. I like the idea of we have to help them, we have to support them.
Okay. Darla, what's your response to what you've heard so far?
I really like the question that's come forward and what my colleagues have said on the panel so far. And I would say I agree with what I've heard. So what I'll add to the conversation is that I believe the role of CEO and a job that I would take on as president-elect and president would be to champion the opportunity for women to take leadership roles and for women to know that engineering is a safe place and a successful place for a career. And so how does PEO do that within its regulatory mandate? It looks at what the barriers are for women to become regulated or become licensed rather, and figure out how to lower those barriers or how to remove those barriers. So that's the initiative I think that needs to happen, as well as accurate and regular reporting on where we're at so that we can track success.
Okay. So listen, Wayne, we're going to take you now for the next question to start. So there's a variety of different issues that are on the public's mind. We hear about affordable housing, we hear about climate change. We hear about the impacts of artificial intelligence. And what do you see as PEO's role in protecting Ontarians and within the practice of engineering within the context of these types of social issues that are currently being discussed?
PEO's role on this should be developing a practice standard for engineers to work within these issues. Majorly concerned, to be honest, with the rapidness that artificial intelligence is actually rising. We're seeing computers doing more and more engineering work. And yet, at no point in time have we actually come up and set standards on that. Who is responsible for the work? Who takes responsibility? Is it the programmer? Is it the person doing the input? Does it have to be a licensed engineer at all involved anymore? So that's something that we really need to get ahead of. And I would like to be able to work with industry experts in the field to try to understand the trends that are coming, not just be pro or retroactive and saying, okay, this is now here, we have to deal with it, but understand this is coming. We have to have format in place to deal with it. Climate change is also a huge one for public safety. I think we've all seen it this year, specifically with the nature of storms and what's going on worldwide. And that is somewhere where we have to work with Engineers Canada on to try to come up with a national standard.
Okay. Fred, what's your thoughts?
Well, the first thing is we have to, in my opinion, we have to encourage the industry leaders, the government leaders, and let them know that if they need people to do the job, the big projects, why don't they use the professional engineers? These people are licensed, they have experience, they know what they're doing, they have the knowledge. Come and get them instead of like going around trying to find random people. So this is the first thing. We have to create a very strong communication. PEO has to do it with these guys, with these people, the government, industry. Let them know to come and work with the engineers, with professional engineers. Then we know that the public is protected because we're putting the right people in the right place. But I doubt if there is such a communication in place, and nobody even think about it. Thank you.
Okay. Darla, what are your thoughts?
I'll take an opportunity for a shout out to the Government Liaison Program Committee and the initiatives that PEO have taken through the Government Liaison Committee to reach out, and the Government Liaison Program to reach out to the MPPs and actually communities around issues. So I think there's a place and a methodology that we have to be able to get messages out. I think what I've heard so far, I certainly agree with the artificial intelligence, sort of the homelessness or the lack of affordable housing is another key issue that's certainly top of mind, and certainly climate change. I find it quite surprising that we haven't, as a profession, moved forward more robustly with a focus on climate change and more consistently. So certainly professional planners have put that into their mandate and actions. And if we need to work through Engineers Canada in order to get a national practice standard, we should do that quickly.
Okay. And Christopher, what's your thoughts?
I really think that PEO's role is back to its roots, protect the public interest. And that really requires public education. AI is here to stay, but a lot of people kind of have this misconception of what AI is. You ask someone in computer science, what's AI? You ask a 14-year-old, what's AI? You ask, an elderly person, what is AI? They'll probably all tell you different answers. And I really think we need to bring it down and explain what it is, and so that people are aware. So identify, communicate, and those would be the first steps towards public safety and towards public interest. As for the climate action and climate change, there are actually a lot of engineers that don't know they're contributing to the problem more than the solution by doing their everyday duties that they've been doing for 15, 20 years. And that needs public education. I'm actually part of a climate change ad hoc group. You can YouTube it. And, we have panel from all across Canada on it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. That's my time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Listen, we've been having a great discussion. I think we have time for about 2 more questions. So this next one, we're going to start with Fred. And the question is really about council decisions. And if elected, as president-elect, is there anything that council has been decided on in the past few years that you might want to revisit, maybe even have reversed?
Well, the most important thing that I believe is, let's talk about CPD. We're asking the council, the way I understood is they try to eliminate Canadian experience and replace it with CPD. Why? Why we're doing that? If people already have the experience, they don't need CPD. Not every profession, not every discipline needs CPD. Maybe some, we don't know. Yes, I agree, but not all. So they already have enough experience, and we have to make exception for some disciplines, for some engineering divisions. We don't need CPD at all. We have Canadian experience. We don't have to eliminate it. We don't have to replace it with something at the end. Canadian experience comes at the beginning. CPD comes at the end. We have to wait until people get experience, then pass CPD. Well, that's one thing I feel it was wrong and has to be changed.
Thank you, Fred.
The second thing I mentioned.
So Fred, thank you very much, Fred.
Right.
Yeah. So we're going to go now to Darla. Darla, please go ahead.
All right. So the council decision, and perhaps this was an unintended consequence, but the ending of the EIT designation is the issue that I'll bring forward to answer this question. We do need to revisit that, or if it will put a pause on it and correct it as we kind of move forward. It's unfair to the graduating students now to not have the ability to begin their licensing journey with PEO right at the very beginning, and proudly use the EIT designation. That needs to happen, and it needs to happen as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you very much, Darla. Christopher, what is your response?
Yeah, I think Darla really hit this one on the head. The IT decision one was one that was done in haste for a deadline without any safety net or anything to catch the process before it was suspended. Maybe I'll add to this. Another example would probably be the decision that was made when we changed the requirements for a licensure application to only be those who have a bachelor in engineering. So we used to have a Bachelor of Technologists. We used to have folks that had a master's or PhD in engineering, but a different bachelor's. That's no longer the case. You must minimum have a Bachelor of Engineering or Applied Science to apply now. So a lot of it has been excluded, and now there's a bit of a pushback on that in our licensing and challenges with that from the university and academic side of things. So that would probably be something I would like to revisit.
Okay, thank you very much, Christopher. And Wayne, what are your thoughts?
There are two that I would like to actually address as president. One, again, has been mentioned by Darla and by Christopher, is our approach to FARPACTA. Again, I think we've done our membership a great disservice in how we've responded to FARPACTA, and the fact that we did that without consultation and internal review. The other thing I would like to reverse is the decision was made a few years back that council not use task forces, and that council has separated itself from the membership, and that there are committees that only councilors can be on, and only councilors can be on that committee, and that the general public no longer has direct access to council. We have 90,000 problem solvers, 90,000 plus, that are able to contribute to help us deal with some of these issues. And some of these people are actually experts in the fields that we're looking for, but we're choosing not to. And I think we have to reverse that policy, especially if we want to get ahead on certain things like AI and emerging disciplines.
Okay, thank you very much, Wayne. So we are now getting to our final question in this session, in this part of the discussion. And Darla will be the first one to answer this one. And again, this was sort of touched on a little bit earlier. So in 2021, PEO Council approved an anti-racism and equity code, which included a next step to evaluate PEO's role in truth and reconciliation and report back at each PEO annual general meeting. And so what do you think are council's accountabilities should PEO respond to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to actions? And I just want to acknowledge, thank you very much for starting with the land acknowledgement in your response at the beginning. It's an important reflection for all of us. So good learning. But yeah, what do you think are council's accountabilities to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to actions?
So the question here around the Truth and Reconciliation, there's 93 recommendations, and there's one that is focused on businesses and corporations to be able to engage and adopt the framework. I think it's important that PEO take their role seriously as it relates to equity and diversity. And begin to understand the important role and the disservice that had happened in the past and what can be done as part of this reconciliation moving forward. I think it's important that we take action. It's important that we report on the actions that we're taking, and it's important that we learn as part of this journey towards reconciliation. And I look forward to encouraging and participating in the healing process that PEO can participate in participating in the Truth and Reconciliation.
Okay, thank you, Darla. Christopher, please, what's your response?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think a land acknowledgement is probably the best and first way to start. We need to identify clearly what our role is as council. We need to learn or relearn our history. I did my own learning at the University of Alberta on this, and I think we should invite Indigenous leaders for a workshop, and the council should perhaps do a First Nations blanket exercise to better understand the history, better understand what's happened, but most importantly, in our role when in a diverse area, we should listen. And my definition of listen is willing to change. Once you are there and you're listening, you have to have the open-mindedness to receive what you are listening. And I think there's a lot we can listen to in these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Wayne, please, your response.
I tend to agree with Christopher in the respect of listening. We need time to learn. We need time to learn what the core issues are. We need to understand exactly why things are happening the way they are before we can fix anything. And that's always been the goal of the Anti-Racism Exploratory Work Group, which I was actually proudly a member of. On the issue as nationally as the Indigenous issues, to be honest, I feel also we need to engage Engineers Canada and come up with a national strategy. Again, this is not just an Ontario-centric problem. This is actually a national problem that even the governments haven't completely figured out what to do with. And we have done a lot of studying on this, and we've made a number of recommendations. But I think we need to bring it up, and I think we need to get Engineers Canada involved and get the other regulators involved also, and try to come up with a uniform response to that.
Thank you very much, Wayne. And Fred, please, your response.
Again, I would like to ask you, repeat the question.
Oh, absolutely. So in 2021, PEO Council approved an anti-racism and equity code, and that included a next step to evaluate PEO's role in truth and reconciliation and then to report back. And so what do you think are PEO Council's accountabilities to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the calls to action?
Well, depends on how we interpret that. Is it within PEO? Are we talking about problems, racial problems within PEO, or in the public, an engineer is involved? How we want to interpret that? If it's within PEO, we already have rules and regulations. We are happy with it, and no one can break them. If it's in the public, government is responsible for it, so we cannot do anything really about it. So what's the question really? Are we talking about something that council has power to do, has not done yet? That's my question. I'm answering your question with another question. I'm saying that it's not very clear what were they going to do, how they're going to do it, and with what extent and with what power. They have to clearly define that for members to know what we're talking about. All right?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And this is the start of hopefully many conversations, right? Mm-hmm. So this does conclude the question portion of the meeting. And now each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing remarks. So I'd now like to ask Wayne Kershaw for your closing remarks, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. In this meeting tonight, we've addressed a number of issues, from member engagement, which is something that I'm quite passionate about, the chapters for PACTA and licensing issues, climate change, AI, Indigenous issues. Unfortunately, with 1 minute to answer these questions and to discuss the issues, it's very difficult to do the deep dive on any of them. And so my intent with the upcoming email blast is to develop my position on many of these issues further. And I encourage every member to read mine and to read the email blasts as they come out on everybody, to try to understand where we're coming from on all of this. It is important to me that our members take an interest in the profession. And so I would also encourage everyone, not just to vote, but to speak with your colleagues. Initiate some of these discussions with them. Get an understanding for yourselves on their issues, and try to understand how PEO can best serve the profession. That is what we're here for, is to regulate and govern our members. As president, I'm hoping to do more of that with open dialogue with the membership to understand their priorities. And I hope that you do give me that chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. And now our next candidate, Fred Sajewski, please, your closing remarks.
Sagesti. Thank you for pronouncing. No problem. I have the same problem too. Okay. Well, my campaign is basically on 3 topics. As if you read my material, I see there are 3 topics I'm really emphasizing. First thing is my campaign is about a strong president act. I want that happen, because without a strong president, nothing would move, nothing would change, nothing at all. You have a council with unlimited, useless debates, and you have influences from here and there, and no president can change it, even if you bring 100,000 of them. The second thing I want to mention is about CPD. As I said, we shouldn't replace the Canadian experience with CPD for everybody. Maybe there are some engineering disciplines we can do it, but we must do it, but not for everybody. When we have the experience, people with the good experience, we shouldn't force them to go through that test. The third thing I want to mention is regarding the communication through time, not the communication at the moment between council and staff, or between governance and operational body, or so on. If the council leaves, another councillor come, and if president leave, another president come, who's going to pursue the points, the comments, the goals? The previous one was doing it. When we leave everything behind, everybody's gone, and then nothing happened, everything forgotten. You know what I'm saying? So the communication is important, and not just that, with the members too. Members are, or chapters or members, whatever there is nothing in the middle, and the PU is not structured to have it. That's bad. That's a weakness. These weaknesses will eventually cause issues, troubles in the future.
Thank you very much, Fred.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Fred, for those remarks. So now our next candidate, Darla Campbell, please, your closing remarks.
Thank you to Marissa Sterling for moderating the session, and the team at PEO behind the scenes to make this event possible. Thank you to my competitors in this race. We've had a great discussion today on important issues at PEO Council. Thank you to all the candidates who have put your name on the ballot for this election. With your vote, I will bring my experience to focus on elevating the profession in Ontario and take action to keep engineering respected and trusted. This campaign is about collaboration, consultation, and leadership. Collaboration. I'll be working together with members of council, associations such as Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, Professional Engineers of the Government of Ontario, the Association of Consulting Engineers of Canada, Ontario, as well as technical associations like IEEE, CSCE, to name a few. Consultation. My platform includes robust consultation with license holders and key stakeholders. Leadership. PEO needs a leader with a proven record of accomplishments leading boards, organizations, people, and projects. To you in the audience, thank you for listening. If you voted last year, please vote again this year. If you haven't voted in the PEO election before, do it now. Reach out to your fellow PNs and invite them to vote as well. The future of the profession is in your hands, in your day-to-day work, in your voice, and in your vote. I ask for your support to bring my energy, collaborative leadership, and commitment to elevate the engineering profession in Ontario and build the value of professional engineering in Ontario. Vote Darla Campbell for President-elect. We are building the future together.
Thank you, Darla. And now our final candidate, your closing remarks, Christopher Shaheen, please.
Thank you, Past President Marissa, and thank you to the audience and those watching and recording. I also want to thank the candidates that are running and those acclaimed, and thank you to the staff for making tonight happen. The president-elect role is not a role you learn on the job or walk into lightly. I'm ready to hit the ground running with proven experience as vice president and past regional counselor at the PEO. I have the internal and the external political navigation skills, exceptional business acumen, and the capable leadership. The president term is 3 years, which means our vision is going to be updated, our roadmap will be updated, our framework and governance models revitalized. But more importantly, our engineering disciplines are going to be emerging faster than ever. Our EIT program will need to kick in sooner than later, and it will need updating. We'll be that much closer to 2030 and supporting the 30 by 30 initiative, and that much closer to net zero with climate action in those goals. It is important now more than ever to have a president that's been immersed in both council and, even more importantly, immersed with the members and the key stakeholders. I'm in tune with those issues in front of council and in tune with the issues and the concerns that members have, and I'm dedicated to working with council and PEO staff towards solutions. I'll make myself available. I will make myself dedicated in having successful motions passed at council, meaningful ones with meaningful change that demonstrate the best interest of PEO and its members. Lastly, I'm a motivated leader who will stand up for you in the profession. I want to thank those once again who supported me in the past. And this is your opportunity to exercise your right as a PEO member. Voting. I would like to ask for your vote once again in your support. And a vote for me is a vote for capable and proven leadership. If you want to make your vote count, please vote for Christopher Shaheen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christopher. And so now this concludes tonight's discussion. I would like to also thank the candidates for their participation and also those watching online for your interest in the governance of the engineering profession. I hope you have found the meeting to be informative and to be worthwhile. And as a reminder, a recording of all meetings will be on the PEO website for the duration of the election voting period. Thank you again to everyone for participating in our discussion. And remember, your profession matters, and does your vote. Voting is quick and easy. You can vote online or by phone. Voting opens on Friday, January the 12th, and voting closes at 4 p.m. on Friday, February the 16th. All the information you need is on the website at www.peovote.ca. That's www.peovote.ca. Have a good night.